This episode of the SwitchCast is produced by Edward Galvin, our most honored patron and esteemed Switch Kaiser. Hey everybody, I'm KC.
And I'm JV.
And this is the SwitchCast, the podcast for those rich in Switch spirits. There we go.
Switch spirits. Now, I do want to note, because this guy is obviously a Switch Kaiser and we have to treat him super special.
Yes.
I think his name is pronounced Edward Galvan.
It could be. Let's invite him to tell us in the Discord the proper pronunciation. Though I do feel that you sometimes do just like to add the flourish because it does sound so pretty.
Well, either way, I just wanted to make a note, make it special because it's a Switch Kaiser. We want to say your name right. You know that deal. But hey, KC, welcome back.
Oh, you didn't miss me. You guys were fine without me doing your podcasts and all that.
Well, I mean, it definitely was fun. I have to admit, it was fun doing a podcast live. Mm-hmm. It was also, a lot easier to have one single audio file going. But no, I don't envy you having to edit the podcast each week, Casey.
It's one of those things, though, that over time it gets easier. And I can imagine you editing it. It was probably like when I first was learning how to edit, It's not like you don't know what to do. It's just like all those little shortcuts that have built up over time that save me time doing it. I'm sure it took you a little longer than it normally would have. Right.
But yeah, it was actually pretty cool having David on for the last episode. But,
No, it sounded great. You guys got, you got that natural... We know what we talk to each other in person every day, kind of flow and chemistry, and I dig it. I only get you for an hour a week,
and then the rest is just text. I pretty much talk with you almost every day you're around, Casey.
Yeah, I know, but it's so different text. Like honestly, when I talk to Amelie on text, I remember it took me a long time just to adapt the way because like when you talk in text and you don't have that connotation and the way you use your voice to convey meanings, I feel like the first 2 or 3 years of me speaking with my now wife were like so many misunderstandings and it became so hard.
Oh yeah, but now there's shorthand and emojis and all that stuff that we can use to kind of help portray emotion in text.
I still think there needs to be a sarcasm punctuation mark. Like, it's sometimes that is totally missed on people, and I just think there needs to be a punctuation mark that says, this is sarcastic. I'm not saying, yeah, right. I'm saying, yeah, right.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe we need a new punctuation mark in this world, Casey.
It could be.
I feel like the world deserves it.
If nothing else, the upside down question mark stolen from Spanish would work great in English like that.
Speaking of Spanish, how was your vacation?
Ooh, actually, I'll say Spanish is only one of the languages spoken in Curacao. The other one, other than English, because it's a Dutch, they speak Dutch, and they don't speak Spanish predominantly. Papamiento is a language there I've never heard before.
Papamiento?
It blows my mind that there's still languages in the world I just haven't even heard of.
Do you mean papiamento?
They said pop. Now you got me all double guessing. Papamiento is how they said it.
Okay. But you essentially went on your own real world adventure over there.
It was great. I went down there. We went for the main purpose was to get scuba open water certified, so that
that works internationally, right? Once you're certified there, you can scuba anywhere.
Correct. Yes, it's by SSI, which is one of the two big scuba certifying.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So yeah, we had a whole bunch of these courses. We took emergency lessons. We had to take a written test and learn a whole bunch of things and practice some stuff. But it was really great. It was just me, Amelie, and an instructor, a personal kind of class there. And we did a bunch of dives. Went down to about 60 feet. It was our maximum depth. And No, it was really fun. We had a few days to relax. I'll tell you, I played a lot of Stardew Valley on the beach over this week.
I feel like that's like the perfect game for a relaxing vacation. It's like no stress. There's no specific challenges. You just go with the flow, man.
Oh, it's seriously, because honestly, without having to do the podcast, I felt no pressure to have to play any games that I need to just get enough to cover for the show. So I was like, you know what? This is the most I've been able to just sit with one deep game for a long time and no pressure. And just, I played a lot of that on the beach. I even have a few pictures I may have posted on Twitter of me doing that. And as long as I kept sand out of the system, I was safe.
Yeah, that's true. Now, I do have to ask, for the sake of all Nintendo fans, you had to have played the underwater Super Mario Brothers theme at some point, right?
In my head, it was going on. No, it definitely was going on in my head at times.
Yeah, really?
No, seriously, for real. It's just like, because like when you're down there and there's no talking and you just hear the, if you're like, the water, your brain does start to play music, and that did literally come to my head at some point.
Yes. Well, it's honestly a bunch of good stuff, and I'm glad we brought it over to Mario, because Super Mario Odyssey is out.
Yeah, awesome.
Yes.
I mean, yes, I am very hyped to talk about this today, and we were going to probably spend a lot of time on that, but we've been playing a few other little things. I know that I listened to everything you had to say about Fire Emblem Warriors last week, but I'm sure you have a few little things to follow up and tell me about that.
Yeah, definitely.
We have a ton of news actually this week too. There's a lot of like businessy kind of stuff that happened this week, but honestly, it's very interesting stuff. Like there's a lot of infographics showing us stuff that people always ask us about, actually. Like, how are people using their Switch? They have a lot of data on how much time they spend with it, ages and sales, and it's actually pretty cool stuff like that. And Reggie's been doing a bunch of interviews and has just been saying a whole bunch of stuff.
It's fun to run down the numbers and statistics of the console, because it seems so pivotal to the Nintendo itself. So I say we dive right in as soon as possible, Casey.
All right, let's not waste any more time. All right, I've got my snorkel on, and let's dive into the game time.
Let's go on an Odyssey.
Mario Odyssey. JV, how much have you been playing of this week, actually?
Alright, so I started the game, and I'm committing to playing Super Mario Odyssey completely in co-op. It's such a perfect game for two players to really just have at it and have fun in the world.
I have to say, I'm slightly disappointed to hear that.
Oh, really?
Because I'm doing exactly the same thing.
No! Casey, no!
No, I'm serious, because I actually was planning on saying this is my new Breaking Bad, because we actually finished watching the final episode of Breaking Bad on the plane ride.
Was it?
On the plane ride.
Did you enjoy it?
It was really awesome too, by the way.
We'll discuss that some other time.
Yeah. But I was always saying, like, it took me forever to watch that because I would only watch it with Amelie because she wanted to watch it, and it was just a thing that we didn't want to get ahead of each other, so we just watched it, and the few times we were both able to cross paths and enjoy it. Mario Odyssey is the only game I know that she's been interested in playing for the Switch in any kind of serious level, and I'm not going to squander a second of that. And so, yes, I have agreed to her that I will not play this game without her, and it is a total co-op experience for me.
Yeah, in my side, obviously I'm playing with David from the previous episode, by the way. And yeah, we play co-op games together all the time, and he's actually not the biggest Mario fan. At least the 3D Mario games, he wasn't really that big of a fan of it. So once we picked up Super Mario Odyssey, I let him play as Cappy, and it's been a blast the entire time. Mm-hmm. There's just so much to do in this game from the get-go.
Yes, I'll say, like, once we turned it on, I was just happy to see that the story intro, like it does have a really cool, very dramatic intro, more dramatic than any other Mario beginning too. Like it's short, it's sweet, it's the same story, but it feels very movie-like,
It's the way it's presented is a lot more cinematic than it's ever been, but the story is still the tried and true formula for a Super Mario game.
Right. Except they added that theme that we've all seen, the theme of this whole wedding thing with Bowser dressed up, and he's looks like he's trying to gather wedding-related items.
Which is interesting. Yeah. Now, on my side, I've probably played about 3 hours of the game, but I don't think I'm that far. I'm just at around the area where I'm in the desert with the frozen little mariachi people.
Okay, yes, Amelie and I actually pretty much cleared out that desert. We sat down one night, and we had 2 sessions, but we sat down, and over the course of maybe 3 or 4 hours total, we mostly cleared out everything that we could find in that desert. I think we'll have to go back. There's a few things and nooks and crannies and maybe stuff that we need something to come back and unlock it with. But it was really cool just to run around and explore, and we took turns being Cappy or Mario here and there, especially like certain scenes. She's like, oh, no, I don't want to control this Bullet Bill in this weird little tense situation. Yeah, you could be Mario for this part. Okay, and we would switch off. But even when you're not Mario, just looking around and trying to be observant and be like, ooh, I think that's a thing over there. Maybe we should go explore that, was still engaging, even when I'm not like jumping as Mario.
Right, and I did notice the second player has quite a bit of control over Cappy. I was surprised at just how much control Cappy allows for. You can move pretty much independently, almost indefinitely.
Yeah, right. You just float around. You can really clear out enemies very easily as Cappy without any kind of worry.
Right, but that also makes the Cappy player feel like they're a lot more involved than they would be otherwise.
Do you feel that having a player control Cappy, do you think that makes the game a little too easy at times?
That was our concern initially. And yeah, it does feel simple and easy, and I will dig into playing this game single player so we can judge the motion controls and that aspect of it maybe in future weeks. But it did seem a bit more easy than I expected. However, for me and for us, the enjoyment of Mario Odyssey wasn't necessarily the difficulty of fighting enemies. It was figuring out where things were, finding the new moons and the coins, and actual platforming. And that's where most of the Mario fun was for me.
I will say definitely... I totally agree with that. There definitely were still hard parts. Like I said, there's a section where you have to maneuver as the Bullet Bill through some very tight corridors, and you could easily, just make a wrong turn and poof, you fall in the pit and retry. And that's fine because it's a nice little tricky part, and I love that dying is such a minimal consequence to you.
It's almost expected for you to die at this point.
Yeah, right. They don't have lives. They abolish that. You lose some coins.
Yeah, which is, I actually like how coins were handled in this game. I like the fact that the coins are an actual currency for cosmetic items.
Yeah, right. And there's there's 2 types of coins there's the gold coins, which are universal. Right. And then there's like special coins for each world you go to.
Exactly. And there's different shops for each of those currencies that you'd like to spend. And you can spend it on cosmetic goods or power-ups. And I just love that.
I like as soon as I saw like some of the hats in the very first shop, I was like, oh, I want that. And I just kept telling, it was only like 10 of the local currency to get the sombrero I wanted.
Oh, you got the sombrero.
Oh, yeah. And then, we went out, and then as soon as we got it, I was like, can we go back? I want to be a sombrero now. I'm tired of being this hat. And she's like, we'll get there. We'll get there. I'm like, come on, please. I kept begging her every time we got somewhere. But by that time, we were, knee deep in whatever mysteries we were uncovering. And I was just like, all right, we got to beat this zone fast because I want to be a sombrero already.
I think it's just a lot of fun. I like that they added the elements of a bit of character customization to Mario himself.
Yes, right.
It's something that's actually quite unique to Odyssey, and it freshens up the game.
And it's not exorbitantly priced. I mean, like I said, I only needed 10 or 20 local currency to get a very different hat and costume, and there's a few options. And I think the most expensive thing I saw was 1,000 coins for Mario's boxer shorts.
I don't know if those. I think those are like swim trunks, aren't they?
Yeah, like sure, that. Whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Let's. Yeah. Mario's underwear. But yeah, I believe it's possible that in the future, cosmetic items are going to cost quite a bit more. But it's also another way for them to have some sort of replayability that's included in the game.
Yes.
You might be more kind of like achievements. You might be more inclined to play the game further to get more coins to buy all the cool new costumes Mario has.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's definitely. I mean, I might not be a completionist with that. I'll probably be a completionist with the moon fragments.
Right.
And I am very happy with the number of them. I mean, when I got to that, that desert location there, and I expected it in my head it was going to be sort of like Mario 64, where there's 5 or 6 things defined and 5 or 6 challenges, but they're just everywhere. You might look around a corner and see one just I just saw a door somewhere I wasn't expecting, or I just stumbled upon it, and in this door was a little challenge, and I got a moon fragment, a moon shard, or whatever they call it, and I'm really happy by that. There's just it's packed with content in everywhere you want to go, and that really feeds my exploration hunger.
Right, and I think we discussed it in the Discord chat. The Mario, the moon fragments themselves kind of remind me of Korok seeds in Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild.
I could see that.
You can kind of stumble into them; they're everywhere, but certain ones you really have to look out for.
Yes,
and it's something that can feed into people's completionist desires.
Yes,
with the game.
Also, what I found myself doing, if I'm ever worried that I'm making the game too easy as this invincible cap that can just slam things around, I don't just wipe out everything for her. I just sometimes I bop a few guys, and I'm like, all right, I'll leave 2 of them for her to kill, and I just put myself back on her head, and then I let her handle them all. So it's you can just not go all out, and you can leave a little challenge to share for your partner if you want.
Yes. Now, on my side, I'm playing completely as Mario, and David's playing completely as Cappy. I'm very surprised at how much stuff is out there for us to find. Yeah. I am not a completionist whatsoever, but David is.
Okay.
And when we ran into the desert stage, and I jumped up and accidentally triggered one of the coins at the top of an icicle. Mm-hmm. We had to jump up above every single icicle and grab every single coin.
Oh, and Amelie is obsessed with the little cacti you can knock over and get the coin. She's just no, we have to. She tells me, go knock those over. I want every one of those.
Yeah, it's
a little OCD.
I mean, the thing is, it's obviously Nintendo would put something above that icicle. Yeah. And obviously Nintendo is going to put them above almost every single icicle.
Yes, right.
So, yeah, it's one of those things where it does add a bit of a dynamic between you and your co-op partner that's some games just aren't able to replicate.
Yeah, right, totally. Oh, and without spoiling any of the things that happen, I will just say, though, the opportunities for teamwork during the boss I fought for that zone, because I told you I finished that zone, well, mostly, it's probably a few moons for me to get still, but we did fight the boss for that zone, and I felt that there was it was a lot of fun figuring out each of our roles or how each of us can participate in different ways to defeating the boss.
Right. Even the first big boss that you fight in this game. That's the first and only boss I've faced so far.
Okay.
And I was surprised at how much and how involved it was for both characters simultaneously.
Yeah, it's almost like you could take turns. Like, there's some things that Cappy needs to do, and while Cappy is waiting for his opportunity to do his thing, Mario can just be like, all right, I just need to dodge and focus on not dying, and I can focus on that. But once Cappy triggers whatever thing he has to trigger, it's time for Mario to go and, do the finishing blow on the enemy. And it's a really cool dynamic. They give each player a role that, they can feel like they're contributing towards the fight. And I think that's a really interesting design, because I know it'll still work in one player. Obviously, it'll be a little harder. Right. But they've obviously designed things so that doing it two-player makes everyone feel like they're helping.
Yes, and honestly, the last time they tried to tackle this style of co-op was in Super Mario Galaxy, and that, while it was novel, the implementation in that game was kind of bare bones.
Right.
And the second player didn't really feel like they were doing anything. Do you remember how that one worked?
That Casey? You would point the Wiimote at the screen and you could shoot things and
you shoot at Stardust things. Right. And that was it. You just hit enemies or use your cursor to gather little Stardust gems. But that was it, and it didn't feel like you were participating as much as it does now.
Oh, yeah, totally, because I think it's a big difference when you can have an avatar on the screen. Like, if you are Cappy, you identify as being something. Like, there's a reason you're able to do what you do on the screen. Even when I'm just sitting on Mario's head, I love the ability just to swivel around and, feel like I'm still, existing in that world or doing something, even though I'm not actively. I just like swiveling his eyes around, I'm looking for moons here,
I'm keeping an eye out for you.
Yeah,
I'm helping. I'm looking. I'm using my eyes to help. It's fun. Yeah. The game overall is just such a joy. It's so much fun being Mario and having Cappy along for the ride. It's great.
There's a lot of moves to Mario too. Like Amelie, we saw the pamphlet,
the action chart or the action.
And she's like, I don't want to learn all these moves, and I still remember a lot of them from previous
classic
3D
Mario
maps.
games.
Yeah, right. I remember them, so a lot of them just come back naturally. But she looked at it and she's just like, okay, I'm going to learn this one move, and that's it for now. Maybe I'll learn another one later. But it is really cool how many options there actually are for Mario to do. And I think there's even a few little tricks you can do with Cappy, like being able to bounce off of Cappy or something. And
we've noticed that if Cappy triggers the jump while he's on Mario's head, you can jump up really high really quickly.
Yes.
Yeah, so oftentimes I'm like, okay, I'm about to jump. Cappy, you jump first, and then jump again, and then we trigger a third jump from there.
See, I'm not sure if I got somewhere I'm not supposed to have gone because of that, or maybe, they expected you to do that. I don't know. Yeah. But I feel like I've gone some places not the way I was intended to get there because I was using that.
Yeah, it's Nintendo. I'm sure they've designed this to the ground, and they figured that that's something that's possible. And I love that gives you the feeling, too, that, I might not have been intended to be here, but it's kind of awesome that I am.
Yeah.
It's classic Nintendo design.
Totally. Now, it does beg the question. Everyone's already been asking, is this Game of the Year
compared to Breath of the Wild?
Yeah. And, I mean, how do you respond to people who ask that kind of question?
Well, it's hard to decide because, in essence, the Game of the Year has to be just one game. We can't break it into different genres, but these two games are just in such different... they're so different that it's hard to compare the two.
I think one of the big things that as exciting and as much as I'm already into Super Mario Odyssey, I do think people need to hold off on that question until you're playing it for like a month. Because that was the thing. Like, if it's going to be a game of the year, you can't be excited. No matter how excited you are, that excitement needs to be maintained throughout the entire game or for a while. And I feel like...
Right, okay. Yeah. So they can't pose this question during the honeymoon hype phase.
Right.
Let the game exist for at least a month, and then we can decide, okay, how long is this game really going to provide us joy? Is it something we're still going to think about for a long time coming?
Yeah, because I know people who already actually beat this game in one power weekend, right?
Well, to be fair, they did the same thing for Zelda.
Well, no, yeah, but what I'm saying is, like, if that person who beat it in a power weekend is done and doesn't find anything interesting or, like, and that was it, it feels like it's, you know, like, that's the kind... Same with Zelda. Like, if you beat it, right, and you never played it again after that weekend, would that have been a Game of the Year level game? I'm just saying it's the same kind of comparison. Like, if you finish Mario Odyssey and that's it, and the hype train is over and you never think about it again, that definitely could affect that kind of designation as Game of the Year in my book.
It's a very hard question. I agree. We should take a bit of time for. Yeah,
and you know, here's the thing. I get the impression neither of us are going to be plowing through it, though. We're both going to be playing it at a very deliberate pace. I feel like, as much as I want to plow through and just, I really want to play it like right now, even.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't want to break my mandate of playing it with Amelie as this one game that actually has brought her to enjoy the Switch with me, and I couldn't trade that for anything.
But regardless, I feel like this is a game that we are naturally going to be covering over the course of a couple weeks. Yeah. So it's the biggest Nintendo Switch game since Breath of the Wild.
Definitely.
And Odyssey does deserve, multiple episodes of coverage.
Definitely.
So I think it's natural for us to cover it at this pace.
Yeah, sounds good. So anyway, so far we're super excited, obviously. I just think it's really funny that we're both playing it the same way, and you know what? Whatever. We'll be able to talk about, I think, the same stuff as we experience it along the similar pace. I think that might work out for us in the long run.
Yes. No, and definitely next week, I'm going to try to play it single player, and we can cover, how we feel about the motion controls built into it, and maybe the capture mechanic, and that's stuff we can cover for next week.
All right, sounds good. All right, so we did get to play a little bit of some other things this week. I have found time, as much as it's been hard to. I did find time. I went and dove into... I kept saying Sine Mora EX. I believe it's Latin. It's like Sine Mora, which is Latin for in short time.
Sine Mora.
Yeah, there we go. Fidos lusec, vicos. This is probably the highest production value shoot 'em up on this Switch right now. It's also the first shoot 'em up I've played since Ikaruga that did something really stand out for the genre, something different.
Interesting.
Yeah, it actually adds some new mechanics and did something to the genre that I'm like, oh, all right, you didn't just throw a bunch of bullets at me and throw some fancy graphics on it. All right, I'm intrigued. Let's give this a shot. So this game, Sine Mora, is it is a shoot 'em up in this universe. I guess you could say it's almost Star Foxy in that there's all sorts of anthropomorphic characters throughout it. Like, everybody's a different animal person. There's from like a deer to a bison and a lizard guy and what have you. And they're in, though, a much I don't want to say like a darker world, because it's really colorful and
right.
beautiful. But like the story, which was also one of the things that they tried to do differently with this game, was actually put in a decent story behind it, is very like dark and kind of grisly.
Right, I heard it was a little grim in its storytelling direction.
That is probably the word, grim. I mean, we're talking about like these like characters dealing with such issues as like genocide, all right, and enslavement of people and just horrible things that happen to people and people who got like there's a character who got a cancer in this game, okay? Like
wow.
Just bad stuff happens to a lot of people. They're just dealing with like a lot of these issues, and thus a lot of the story is about revenge and people trying to do things before their time is up. And
that's surprisingly heavy for a shoot 'em up game.
It is. It's very heavy. I do wish the story though was possibly told a little more coherently. There's a lot of time like issues with this. Like the game is about these people who have power over time, and so the story is actually told from different points of view, and it jumps around, and there's a lot of talking in between stages if you play story mode. So if any of the story stuff I say turns you off about this game, keep in mind there's just an arcade mode where you could just skip all this and just shoot bosses and stuff. But the story is told in a lot of, like, it jumps around the timeline and characters, and I found it kind of tough to actually follow. I do feel like they probably could have told the story better, and there is, like I said, a story to tell here of interest, but it's a little elusive at this point. But it has to do with these race that can see and control time, and this empire that's like, you know, slaughtering and trying to enslave and control these people to make use of their power, and a bunch of people who are trying to, you know, overthrow this empire for their own various reasons. Now, the gameplay itself. The thing that separates this game in terms of how it functions is, instead of there being like a health bar or just a number of lives you have when you die, when you get hit, this game has a clock system where you basically exist in this period of time or on the stage as long as you have time on the clock. And it starts out like 40 or 60 seconds, whatever. And it runs down. And if you get hit, it takes off time from your clock. If you blow things up, it adds time to your clock.
Okay, so it acts as kind of like your life bar.
Yes, and it will fluctuate. I mean, you know, it will go, sometimes it'll come really close, and that might invoke you to do some riskier moves because you're like, uh-oh, I need time. I have to go and just blow things up and take the riskier move. Whereas if you have a lot of time saved up, maybe you'd be like, you know, I'm just going to dodge bullets down here for a little while. And even if I'm not blowing things up, I'm in a safe place because I have some buffer time. So it affects the way you play.
Okay. I like that, actually.
Yeah, it's pretty good. So it's especially good because it doesn't mean that one hit, all right, I'm just like dead, or 3 bad moves and, you know, you're out of lives or something like that. You know, you can get hit a few times, and if you built up a little buffer of time, you're okay. But some other time powers you have, you can equip different modules, and they can do a number of different things. One of them is, and the main one you'll use in the story mode at least, is a thing that slows down time. It's called speed up because technically it's making you go faster, but they play that out as the rest of the world slows down for you. Bullet time, basically.
Right, bullet time.
Which in a bullet hell shooter is possibly the most godsend power in the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And this is actually, it's tied to a meter. The meter is hard to refill. You have to get certain items, so you have a very finite amount of this to use. But if you use it sparingly, it will save you from a lot of like, oh, there's a stream of missiles coming out of this thing that I could never get through unless you slow down time, and then you can just weave your way through those little gaps between missiles that would be normally impossible for you to do.
Right.
So that's pretty cool. You also, you know, you have your sub-weapons there. You get the power-ups that also boost your main weapon. Now, here's the one thing that does really frustrate me, though, in the way this works is you get you get the power-ups that boost up your main shot, which is great, and you can have up like 9 or 10 of these. But every time you get hit, you like just drop all of them, right?
So it completely renders you back to essentially a naked ship.
Well, yes, but you can quickly re-grab all your power-ups, right?
Okay.
They literally drop, and then you could just go and pick them up, which is fine, except for those times where, like, I was in the back left of the screen, and I got hit, and all the power-ups instantly flew off the screen and were lost forever. Oh,
well, no.
Yeah. Or on a boss fight, I got hit, let's say, and now my powers flew like behind the boss. And I'm like, well, I have to go there to grab them. But if I grab them behind the boss, I'm going to get hit returning to the left side of the screen. I'm going to drop them again. And it just becomes this really frustrating situation of like, I'm not even fighting the boss anymore. I'm just trying to re-grab my power-ups, but they keep dropping every 5 seconds. And it's frustrating.
Yeah. Right. But do you think that was an intentional design choice for them? Maybe to ramp the difficulty up?
I think so. I think it's just supposed to be a way that, it's not totally a total reset every time you get hit. I do think dropping all of them is a little extreme because there's some edge cases. And like I said before, where they just get flown off the screen. Or if you're transitioning between scenes of a stage, there's plenty of times where I was like, I lost my weapons and I was just like, you know what? I'd rather just die, because if you die, you go back to your last checkpoint and you have all the weapons you had then.
Okay.
I would try to just say, you know what? I don't want to go into this next boss battle with no power-ups. It's just suicide. Let me just die here and go back to the checkpoint with my weapon. But no. I would maybe just survive. I couldn't kill myself fast enough. And I would reach the next checkpoint with no weapons, and now I'm totally boned. I'm just no, I would rather just die and go back. And it ticks me off sometimes.
Right. I can see how that, it reminds me of the Earth Atlantis game we discussed previously.
Yes, right.
It seems like something that could cause frustration without really adding any benefit to difficulty.
Right. I think they could have had a few more safety nets, or maybe not drop all your power-ups. You could drop 3 of them every time you get hit or something. I don't know. But anyway, it's not a deal breaker. It's just a frustration, and I feel like it's a little thing that could have been tweaked. Now, the game overall has this, like I said, this beautiful 3D art style. And even though you're controlling the combat as a 2D side-scrolling shoot-'em-up, all the time, between scenes of the stage, they show these beautiful, camera movements where, all right, now you're going to fly around this mountain and you'll see the world in, a 3D panorama for a little while. And it sells you on the 3D-ness of the world, even though, like I said, you're only controlling it in 2D. But, it's a really cool art style.
Yeah, that's a good perspective that it gives you.
Right. And there's bosses everywhere. They're just literally, I almost feel like some of the stages are a little too short. I almost feel like I'd like to drag out some more of the combat, but there are so many bosses throughout the game, and they're all really interesting, and they get really tough. But thankfully, they put in a training mode where any boss you fought, you can just go to this training mode and practice against that boss without having to work your way up to him again in the stage.
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
That's a pretty smart little addition to the game, because there's a lot to learn, and like I said, you can very easily make a mistake and, render yourself helpless against the boss, So
is that part of the arcade mode, or is that a completely separate mode by itself?
That training thing is a separate mode, so that is just you can go to the boss mode, pick a boss you want to practice against, and go for it.
That's fun. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So anyway, there's like I said, there's the story mode, there's the challenge mode, which is the arcade mode, and the arcade mode really ramps up the difficulty, and this game is hard. Oh, I mean, if you like real shmups, you want a bullet hell shmup, I think you will really enjoy this game.
Yes.
And, like I said, there's even easier stuff. They do tone down the difficulty decently if you're just looking to play it for the story, which is feasible. As much as I think they could have told the story better, I still think there's something there, and it's still an enjoyable shmup experience as you're going through it. So for what is a $20 game, I think this is $30 game. I think it's a fair price for this level of,
production.
Yeah, very good production. And there's also a lot of, a lot of options of, I'm going to use this pilot with this plane and this, sub weapon, all that kind of stuff to customize how you play through it, though.
Okay. Is there multiplayer? Andy?
I have not seen any multiplayer. I will say that there's a good variety of voice actors in this game, and they are all pretty good voice actors.
Okay.
Music's rather forgettable. I think a good shmup usually has some really good pumping music, but this is just more backgroundy kind of music. But like I said, the voice acting really sells you on it. And Oh, right, and there's a bunch of leaderboard stuff if you're the kind of person who really wants to get dedicated to this and you want to, score high on the leaderboards and stuff like that. Go for it here.
Okay. I feel like leaderboards are a quintessential part of the shmup experience at this point.
Yeah, I guess so.
It'd be remiss not to have leaderboards built in.
But, with so many shmups on the eShop, it's nice to see a new one that is actually a full-fledged, interesting, use of the system's power.
Well, I think Sine Mora was out before, but not the EX version.
I believe you're right, yes.
Yeah.
So tell me about how this week in your Fire Embleming has been.
Oh, so yeah, we've definitely been playing Fire Emblem Warriors, and actually we've beaten the story mode already.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we're done with the story mode aspect of the game, and it's very, it's a very straightforward Fire Emblem story. There are no real frills to it. It's a lot of it is about friendship and camaraderie with the people that you're fighting with, and
it's the power of love.
It's all about friendship. Nakama power. Let's all come together and join our powers. But that's mostly how the story goes. And
how many hours did it take you to get through?
I'd say it probably took about 15 hours to get through the story.
Okay.
We fiddled around quite a bit more, just because it's fun to play viscerally, but the story itself isn't very long. Now, afterwards, there is an unlocked history mode, which I found to be super cool.
Ooh.
Yes, so history mode is essentially a completely different story mode built into the game, where you're kind of replicating big pivotal scenes in previous Fire Emblem games.
Okay, that sounds
within the Fire Emblem Warriors gameplay. So, an example would be when you're essentially fighting the last boss of Fire Emblem Awakening, and you're replicating that scenario in Fire Emblem Warriors instead of the classic Fire Emblem gameplay.
Oh, cool.
And it's obviously not as deep, and it's not as strategic as classic Fire Emblem, but living that scene in this format was pivotal, and it was really triggering a lot of nostalgic elements to it. Or
it brought it to life in a way you hadn't seen before.
Exactly, and I haven't completed this mode yet, but I've heard that it's another maybe 7 or 8 hours of gameplay, so it's a total of 23 hours, I'd say. That's quite a bit of time if you want to really invest in this game.
You know what that's cool about that is that, like, all the most climactic battles in the game kind of suffer from one thing in regular Fire Emblems, is that it always feels like there are, like, 6 to 20 people involved in, like, these epic battles, right?
Right.
But when you put it in the Warriors setting, it's like, oh no, there are armies. There are hundreds and hundreds to thousands of people involved in this war, and that just kind of sells its importance.
Yeah, it's a grand, epic, lively battle that you're running through as a pivotal piece of this strategy that you're trying to employ. It's quite a visceral experience. I love it. It's great. Now, we've been singing its praises for this episode and the past episode. I do want to highlight a few criticisms I have for the game.
Okay.
It is, I'm going to start with the DLC.
All right.
We touched on it last week, and apparently some of the characters, the downloadable characters, are going to cost money.
Oh.
And going through the game, you run into the same characters that are becoming playable in the game itself.
Oh, okay, yeah, right. So, like, they're there. They're just, like,
right.
Like
Navarre and Oboro are in the game. They're physical models that can fight. But, you're going to have to pay for them in DLC, which is a little bit, questionable. I'm wondering if the full character mechanics are already in the game and they're just selling it as DLC later.
Right.
That's where I'm a bit dubious on it.
It doesn't feel good, It
doesn't feel as good as what happened with Hyrule Warriors, because in Hyrule Warriors, all the characters featured are playable, and all the DLC characters you download later on are not characters you've had in the game before. It might seem just a little bit greedier in that sense.
Yeah, right.
I do also want to say that co-op mode is great while docked. It does heavily stutter during the more intense scenes, but it handles pretty well. The problem is when you play it undocked, it's a very, very difficult experience. Playing multiplayer in that small screen while it's chugging as much as it is doesn't really warrant as enjoyable an experience as you'd like.
You do that with 2 switches?
No, that's the thing.
Oh.
The only option for multiplayer is split screen, same Switch.
Okay, yeah, that's not, yeah. I can't even see that working too well, even if it was running smoothly. It's just like...
I mean, on a big screen TV, it's fine.
Yeah, on a big screen TV, sure. But like undocked, I feel like it has to have the option for, 2 switches local.
Yeah, and that seems like it was a missed opportunity for them to implement that. Because honestly, playing co-op in almost any Dynasty Warriors style game is fun. It's fun to hop into Warriors with a friend and just to beat up a bunch of mindless enemies with your overpowered moves. It's fun. In the context of Fire Emblem Warriors, it's also characters that you enjoy. So seeing the co-op experience kind of neutered in this sense is a little, it's not ideal.
Gotcha.
Also, you can't make babies.
Right, I mean, that's the biggest problem. There's no petting minigame, and...
Yeah, that's like the reason why people play Fire Emblem. Is so that they can wed their characters and make babies.
That's, Fire Emblem is just a dating sim with a strategy minigame, right?
Right, yeah, that's exactly right. Let's use that sarcasm.
I gotta use my upside-down question mark.
There you go.
All right, well, that's a lot of good games we've been playing. Let's move on to the news rundown and deal with all that stuff. So we have a couple good numbers, and it's kind of boring sounding almost, but it's stuff that I think they really tells a great story that is worth going over here. But
yeah, so absolutely.
So first off, we hit a new milestone with just how fast Mario Odyssey sold over the 3 days in release. 2 million units of it sold, and that's also with considering the big release of the bundle that came out with Mario and the Switch together.
Now, this is a big deal. 2 million Mario Odyssey games sold worldwide. If you think about it, we just got metrics as well, and apparently 2 million Switches total were sold in Japan alone.
Yes, that's their total, and that was pushed over by about 500,000 Mario units sold in Japan as well. So it's a big proportion of the Mario sales, and a big push for about 7 million Switches sold total?
7 million, around 7 million Switches total around the world. This is impressive stuff. Yeah, it's the Switch fervor is going crazy, and I'm excited to see that Nintendo is finally at the top of its form. Yeah.
And we've been getting a lot of other bits of they've been hitting the media very hard. There was Reggie Fils-Aimé did a bunch of interviews this week, and he had a lot of little things to say and little notes that are worth mentioning here. Like who's buying the Switch, basically.
Right. The demographics that they're targeting.
Yes, and just who's been picking it up. And he went in specifically how many people who aren't Nintendo fans have been getting drawn into it, actually. He said, obviously, we have our Nintendo Switch fan base. But he said he was surprised by how many people who've just never been involved with Nintendo before who have been picking it up.
Absolutely. Even purely anecdotally, I have so many people at work who are buying Nintendo Switches because they loved gaming in the past, but they've never been able to find the time to play games nowadays while in their adulthood. And since they travel so often, the Switch just fits their lifestyle so well, even if they're not necessarily Nintendo fans.
Again, the way I interpret it, again, he was talking about, they asked about the Virtual Console, which is the one thing everyone asks us about, like, pretty much weekly.
All the time.
Now, he did avoid the issue, but he avoided it in a way that kind of reinforces what we've been saying on here a bunch. He said, I'm focusing on things that we have planned for this year, right? For 2017, i.e. it's a 2018 thing. As I've said always, I think maybe in the new year or whatever the first big presentation Nintendo does in 2018, we'll finally start hearing about Virtual Console, but I don't think they're going to get us hyped for anything that isn't coming out before Christmas. They're not going to tell, it could come out December 27th, and they're not going to tell us about it until after all those Christmas sales are done,
I feel, honestly, at this point, I feel like Virtual Console is going to be tethered to their Nintendo Online subscription service.
Right. Yes, definitely.
It seems like that's the direction they're going. Yeah,
and he also, he's made some vague comments about that too, saying though it's going to be something different than we're used to with the other, online services like Sony's and Microsoft's, and that's kind of what we expect at this point. We expect everything to be different than what those guys are doing, just because, already with the little iPhone app that no one's really using, but hey, they're taking a shot. They're trying stuff. So yeah. We'll see. I think they still got some more things in store. Heck, I'm even willing to bet that Animal Crossing iPhone game. Have you actually seen that? You checked that out?
Yeah, I've seen it. I haven't actually played it myself.
I feel like that's even going to tie into, if we do see an Animal Crossing Switch game, I feel like that's going to tie in. Like, they're going to tie the mobile version of it to the Switch version in some way.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll definitely see. It's not outside of the realm of possibility for Nintendo.
Right. And during the earnings report, President Kimishima, he had a bunch of really cool infographics that I think had a few good little points here. They let's see, we saw the usage by household, like the age ranges that are very popular. Biggest age range was about
25 to 34.
I guess I'm in that 35 to 44. That's such a drastic gap for me. So I guess I'm in this little minority up there in the 17% there. But that's that it's the age of gamers are going up in general. So that's kind of fun to see. 86% male though surprises me.
Well, yes, I think they're really working towards making their games universal, regardless of gender. But I feel like the current culture still leans towards a male demographic.
I don't know. I think lean towards it. I've always been of the I've always been seeing a lot of the demographics for gaming in general skewing a little more towards maybe like 70-30 rather than, this is a lot different than I'm used to seeing, and I thought the Nintendos in particular would skew a little closer towards that maybe proportion.
Yeah, I would think and I would hope that it gets closer and closer to 50-50. But
I'm willing to bet that that's a little bit more. I'm willing to bet that might be more related to the way this might have been conducted. Yeah, this survey. I can't believe it being that drastic. The other graph, though, about how people playing it, and this is another question we're asked pretty often, is do you play it docked or undocked more or less? And I was also very surprised to see that, and this is for Japan, US, and Europe, the majority of people definitely use it both, but it seemed like there's a larger percentage that play it predominantly undocked than people who even play it as a home docked console.
Well, that's the thing about the Switch. A lot of people can take this console experience on the go and that is the reason why some people purchased the Switch in the first place.
I think it's a little different. I think people purchased it as intending it to be their docked console. I think they only realized how much they would enjoy it undocked after they purchased it.
That's interesting, because I do see that differently. I feel like there are so many console options out there nowadays that are tethered to the TV that the mobility of the Switch is a big selling point, and that's why they purchased that console in the first place.
Yeah, I think they just got tricked almost. They didn't realize how much they would use it undocked. Because I feel like, especially like before they came out, and when we talk to people, most people seem to say that I don't think I'm going to use this undocked mode. I think I'm going to use it docked. It's going to be my home console. I don't see why I would ever play it outside. But then when the option was there and they tried it out, then they realized, oh, okay. Or like they had people like me at work telling them, bring it in. Let's play Splatoon at lunch. All right. You know, like
I think it's the reason why that aspect, the undocked gameplay is probably more popular than docked is because of a combination of both of our ideas. I think there are people who specifically purchased this for a mobile gaming device, and there's people who specifically purchased it as a docked device and was surprised that it actually works really well as a mobile gaming platform.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Fair enough.
Compromise, Casey.
I'm willing to believe you. I'm just, I'm willing to take that into,
I do
totally
think,
reasonable.
I do think that's a factor for both.
And they also showed off, what was it? Or they threw the number that they have over 300 publishers currently working on games for the Switch, including eShop titles. And they had a little, graph with a bunch of those listed there. I'm willing to bet that like at least 200 of those publishers are indies who are working on maybe one title specifically. But you know what? Even if that means there's 300 single games being worked on for the Switch, that's still a pretty beautiful number.
And even here in this infographic, you see multiple games coming from single publishers. So it's definitely more than 300 games at the very least.
Don't make me look at that. Don't make me look at that graph, JV.
It's honestly
they put it right in the middle of it.
Yeah, I know.
Why'd they put it there? Why do they have to taste me? Dead in center.
PSO 2.
Why would they put Phantasy Star Online 2 in the center of it?
Are you that traumatized?
It's just such a
We've been clamoring for that game since our previous podcasts, and now it's right there.
But I had it out of my system. I was waiting for it forever on Vita, and then I was like, "All right, forget you, Vita. I'm moving on to the Switch." It's like I moved out of a country to forget like an ex-girlfriend, right? Like I'm going to Canada, and then like who moves into Quebec the week after, like down the street? It's like
honestly. I'm just excited that the primary complaint people had with Nintendo is that they don't engage with third parties. Third parties never felt like they needed to bring their games to the Switch. Now it doesn't seem like that's the case so much anymore. It really seems like people want to be on the Switch hype train, and the biggest hurdle is, technological differences.
Okay, so that actually is a perfect segue into one of these other stories I wanted to bring up here. So why is EA so reluctant here to, and I quote, like fully commit to being a Switch developer? They made their little FIFA 18 that released a couple of weeks ago, but they've made statements saying that they're just not ready to be a like Switch developer yet.
Well, for one, it's because it's EA, and they're jerks. No, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. I think primarily it's because they have an engine that they're comfortable with. They have a set of graphics and hardware specifications that they are fine with, and they are not sure if it's monetarily beneficial to their corporation to focus resources on paring down the games they already have.
Okay, all right, that's it.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I get you. That's a very reasonable response. I liked your first thing where you just said because they're jerks, but your more rational follow up, I guess we'll go with as the better answer.
Yeah, let's go with logical. Sure.
I thought this was so interesting. We got a video this week showing people how to transfer their Switch data from one system to another, in case that is an option that you want to do. And I just think it's a little telling. If you look at the video, it's showing you someone transferring data from a traditional gray Switch to a Mario red new Switch.
It's subtle. It's subtle. It's like, hey, check out this new Switch color scheme.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to switch.
I mean, it's also at the same time that we saw that they are one of their future plans for marketing the Switch in another interview at the Wall Street Journal is that they want to push for multiple Switches per household. They don't want people to think of it as like when you have a console, you have an Xbox, that's it. You don't need an Xbox per person. Honestly, and this is weird to me, but it doesn't seem like that far-fetched an idea, actually. I'm not the kind of person who would consider buying multiple of these in a single household, but I can see it working, actually, for some people.
This household.
Yeah, I know.
Switches.
Honestly, though, if we were doing an Xbox podcast, I'd still expect you to have more than one in your house. So
we have 2 PS4s.
Yeah, see, exactly. So you're not exactly the litmus test of this one, but
I do have to say, I have a lot of more thrifty friends who have each own their own Nintendo Switch within their household. So I feel like a lot of fans are treating the Switch kind of like they would with a 3DS.
Right, yeah.
And where each person is kind of expected to own their own Switch. The multiplayer experiences between Switches, having 2 Switches, is ideal. And I think people are already used to that in handheld platforms. And they're trying to push that philosophy into the Switch.
I also think it makes sense because, let's say you go to work and you take the Switch with you. Well, what does someone else at home have to play with unless you had another Switch, So if it's a system that's going to leave the house, yeah, it makes sense that you might have another one. Though, managing who has what save data on which system is probably going to be a topic of contention for some families.
Right, but that's why I find it really cool that Nintendo was able to send out the functionality to transfer accounts between Switches. You can send if you had one Switch with multiple accounts, one for yourself and one for a friend, you can switch that account over to the new Switch without losing your own personal save data.
Speaking of accounts, I need to make a Australian iTunes account because I want to get that Animal Crossing, but that's the only place and that's like one of the few countries I don't have an account for.
Oh yeah. Are you really that excited for that game?
I'm not excited, but especially with me playing, I always say Harvest Moon, Stardew Valley, I don't need another game like Animal Crossing on my phone, but I am just curious,
I think I would enjoy it regardless.
Yeah. It's like, it does feel a different kind of play session time,
Now, there is a game that's kind of sneaking up on me, and it's Doom.
Oh, right.
Doom for the Switch is coming out really soon.
And they were using a fun little, I know people used to use the meme that, during the Wii U days, like Nintendo doomed, and they were using it as like a derogatory kind of term, but Doom has repurposed this as kind of their own, marketing term.
I'm actually really proud that Doom reappropriated that Nintendo Doom term to be a positive message for the product. Good marketing strats.
Okay, so a few other little pieces here to bang out. We got Breath of the Wild Explorers Edition. It was actually revealed today.
This is a really cool way to bring people who are just now getting the console back into interest with Breath of the Wild.
Right. I mean, if you're one of those people who bought the Mario bundle and you did not get Zelda on day one like everybody else did, because Mario has drawn your attention. You can pre-order this now, and it looks like it has a really nice, pretty guidebook with some beautiful art on it.
Right.
It has a map. I think it's that cloth map, but it's different than the one. I'm not sure if it's different. I don't remember the map.
But it's nice. It's cloth and it's two-sided.
Yes, it is really nice there. And yes, of course, it has the game there. So yeah, it's a good way to get into it. And pre-orders are now available. Oh, right. And finally here, I do want to note they really are pushing. They've been doing a slamming job with the promotional tours of the Switch all over. And they had the summer one that came by over here in Brooklyn. Before it came out, they went around and they showed it off everywhere they could then. And now they have a Christmas or a holiday tour experience making its rounds throughout the country. It's probably going to be the same thing. It's probably the same kind of setup, new games, get you hyped for whatever Christmas titles they have coming up. For me, it's just, if it comes anywhere near me, it's going to be another good excuse just to go and hang out with a bunch of the people who go to all these events.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a bunch of really great people over there in New York that are Nintendo fans and Switch fans, so it's a great reason to gather.
All right, so down the pipe.
All right, so Rocket League is coming out November 14th, which is a surprise. We knew it was coming during the holiday season, but we had no idea it was coming so soon.
Yep, that's less than 2 weeks away. So
yeah, this month it's going to be packed. We're just going to have too many games all the time now, Casey.
I guess that's just the fate. That's the fate we have to resign ourselves to, JD.
Yeah. That's not the worst problem I have. Now, the next game here, Korg's Gadget, is coming out on the Nintendo Switch, and it's actually a music production app on the Switch. It's been out in previous Nintendo consoles, and now a new highly advanced version is coming out on the Switch.
Yeah, this actually looks, just from the Engadget article on it, it looks pretty intensive. It's not like a Mario Paint kind of thing. It's not like just making some simple This looks like professional level music generation.
Right, which is interesting. Korg is known for this type of software, and they've always been releasing on other consoles. So yeah, I'm glad they're bringing this type of production on the Switch.
Mm-hmm. It'll Do 2 Plus is coming November 14th as well. This is just, it looks like a little 3D adventure game, Zelda-ish kind of thing, with a really cute little cartoony, almost adventure-timey art style, I want to say.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's by Nicalis, so they've been cranking out some cool stuff.
Now, speaking of Nicalis, it looks like there's going to be a physical edition of Wonder Boy: The Dragon's Trap coming out for North America. Yes. So if you guys want a physical version of this Metroidvania-style fantasy game, yeah, check it out. Yeah,
you reviewed that a while back.
I did, quite a while back. I enjoyed it, though. It's not something that was super special.
Yeah. We also got a few physical editions coming for other games, including Overcooked Special Edition, Worms WMD, and Yoku's Island Express.
Very cool. Now, Gear Club Unlimited was actually moved up on its release date in North America. So that's the racing game that was a recreation of an I believe it was an iOS app.
Right.
So yeah, so it was going to be released on December 1st, and now is going to be released November 21st in North America.
MXGP3, that's coming November 17th. This is a motocross racing game. Not much else I need to say about that. I like this one, though. Owlboy, which is coming February 13th next year, is a pretty cool looking side-scroller kind of adventure game where you're these owl people.
Yeah, it actually has its own. It has a pretty cult following for the game, so I'm sure a lot of people are really excited to have this on the Switch.
Yeah, it looks fun. It looks fun. Cool art as well. And then we also got a Tennis World Tour 2018, which looks to be like one of those like serious sports simulation kind of games where you customize, choose a lot of different, like, you probably have to choose like the right racket for the right competition level, like level of options. And I can't tell what this game is, but it just from the trailer, Townsman 2018. Townsman coming in 2018. Looks like a city building kind of game that's coming to the Switch, but can't really get any other details from this.
Looks kind of like a fantasy SimCity style game.
Yeah, right. All right, the new releases.
So the games that are out now are Monopoly, Monster Jam Crush It, Cartoon Network Battle Crashers, King Oddball, Super Mario Odyssey, Splasher, and Lego World's Monsters. Now there's also Violet, Zombie Gold Rush, Neo Geo Mutant Nation, Moon Hunters, Time Recoil, Knights of Azure 2, Bride of the New Moon, Just Dance 2018, The Mummy Demastered, Night Terrors, and Pole Explorer Edition.
Yes. November 2nd, we're getting, that's by the time this posts, More Fight Chess Ultra, Super Beat Sports, which has a demo out right now. It's on the Japanese eShop, but it has English support, so you can check that out before you buy it. Wheels of Aurelia, Neo Geo Art of Fighting 3, Sparkle 2 EVO, and a physical version of Retro City Rampage DX is shipping at this date.
Which is surprisingly one of the highest rated Nintendo Switch games so far.
Wow, yeah.
I had no idea, but yeah.
I will also note that I did get a copy from the publisher of More Fight, so I will be talking about that next week for sure.
It's very cool. Now on November 7th, Farming Simulator Nintendo Switch Edition's coming out. Sonic Forces Episode Sonic Forces proper, and Heroes of the Monkey Tavern.
Let's dive into the community pulse and wrap this up. I believe you put out a call, was it last week? Or I just know that everyone was shaming each other for not posting questions on here faster.
Yeah, we definitely put a call out for community pulse questions. Okay. And I'd definitely like for both of us to read specific ones.
All right.
So... okay.
All right. I have one I thought would be fun to address here. All right.
Okay, let's go ahead.
Montague Yamas wrote, if Mario Odyssey has DLC for playable characters, who would you want? He thinks Wario would be a good fit. And
wait, who do you think would be a good fit?
Wario.
Huh. I don't know. I would think you would immediately start with like Luigi or I don't know, Yoshi.
Yeah, okay, I can see all those. I actually have a pretty interesting answer for this. I would want to see a cast of characters that the Mario series owes a fair share of its culture and characters from, but never have gotten proper acknowledgement in a Mario game.
Okay, who is it?
The cast from Doki Doki Panic.
No, they're never gonna do that.
The question wasn't who I think they will put in it.
Who would you want?
Who I want. There's a difference. I would want to see the cast from Doki Doki Panic, those guys who were the original game Mario Brothers 2 was based on, but Mario got repasted over. But all the like Shy Guys came from there, and I feel like a decent amount of Mario culture came from that game, and I just think it would be a really cool homage to to this game that is so influential.
Like the actual roots of the game.
I mean, it was Mario 2, so it wasn't the super roots.
Yeah,
like Mario 1 existed before, but it does have a good influence.
Right, that's what I mean.
Yeah. So I just think it would be a cool way to like tip a tip of the cap to these people here.
That's clever. Okay.
Who would you want to see?
Personally, myself, I would like Waluigi, just because there are so many memes about his inclusion in games. So I think that Waluigi would be super cool.
All right, cool.
So from Aldrin Cornejo, he said, while playing Super Mario Odyssey, did you have the same dread I did, where I thought I might be playing the game too fast? No. As we described
not the way we're playing it.
Yeah, not the way we're playing it. We're being very deliberate about how much we're playing this game. We want to make sure we can spread out our excitement for as long as possible, especially considering we're recording a podcast and making sure that the hype train lives on for quite a while with us.
Yeah, that's never a problem for me. I mean, well, one, if I wasn't doing this podcast, I would probably be futzing around with every corner, even if I wasn't getting, moons from it. I would be playing it super slow just because that's how I, poke around these games. And since I am doing this podcast, even if I did beat it super fast, I'd be like, all right, well, at least I could talk about it on the show. And there's just so many games to play right now. I would not mind beating any of them really fast because there's just so many other things to get to.
Right. That's a very good point. I can concur there.
Yes.
Kind of similar to what we've been discussing. You want to read Chewy's?
Okay. He wrote, we got Mario Odyssey and a new Yoshi game is on the way. What Mario brand character would you like to get a game next? I'm always a fan of WarioWare, but I wouldn't mind another game with Peach as the lead.
Interesting.
I mean, I would probably say WarioWare too. Like those games are just to bring that whole cast of WarioWare characters to the Switch would be a great. I just would look for any excuse to get them over here.
Yeah, okay, I could definitely see WarioWare being a good one. Luigi's Mansion, I think, would be also a great option to bring over.
I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna stick with my Doki Doki Panic thing. I want to see Boss Wart show up again in a Mario game.
All right.
I want him to have a spin-off. Who needs another good one? Honestly, a Bowser game.
Oh yeah, I agree. I would like to play as Bowser again, as him being the focal point of a game. Yeah, the last time was it Mario Bowser's Inside Story? Yeah, that was it. That was super fun, and I thought that was a really just playing and seeing things from his point of view, and he's a cool character, and I think they could devise another cool game around him. Yeah, I agree. I think it would be fun. Edward Alexander Galvan. Do you think Nintendo will make additional DLC levels for Mario Odyssey? What type of levels would you want to see if they did? That's actually a really good point. I wonder how they're going to handle DLC for Odyssey, because there has been zero precedent for DLC in any mainline Mario game in the past. So yeah, it doesn't seem like something that would fit the genre. I guess they could, though, very easily just sell a few kingdom or two of DLC, and that would be something. Yeah. I can't say what they could put on the stages because I haven't seen what's in this game yet. I might say, I don't know, they should put a go-kart world. Oh, no, that's already in there. I wouldn't know yet, Right. I think I would like to see them create more levels that are tailored specific to that co-op experience. So if it's if they're levels that are dedicated to Mario and Cappy really working together, that would be really fun. I know it'd be really fun if they have worlds where Mario's jumping into other known game worlds. Yeah, I was about to say that. It would be really cool if they had DLC where he went into the Hyrule Kingdom. Yeah. Maybe into Corneria, that type of stuff. I think that would be a cool direction for DLC to go for Odyssey. Yeah, exactly. So, lastly, this is a silly question. I think you should read Lawson Culver's. If Mario and Wario got into an arm wrestling match, who would win? Would Wario whoop Mario, or would Mario manhandle Wario? Hard-hitting questions. I feel like Wario is physically stronger than Mario. All right. I see. It has to play out like this. This is just it's standard cartoon style things. Round one, right? Wario would be overpowering, maybe, or Mario would start winning, and then Wario would either fart or cheat or do something. Or round one, Wario would just flat out cheat.
round 2, Wario would do something distracting like fart, which is one of his things that he always does, and then, make Mario lose that way. And then by round 3, Mario would devise some way to overcome him and win in the end. That's just the pattern of these sort of things.
That's very true. Thank you.
But that still means Wario won 2 out of 3 competitions, so.
Thank you for the question, Lawson Culver.
Yes.
Casey, if you haven't guessed already, a lot of these Community Pulse questions have a very specific goal in mind. Mm-hmm. So one of the big questions that we received while you were gone was, how did you pronounce the word Wario when you pronounced Mario as Mario?
Yeah.
And so a lot of our community got together and wanted to put as many Wario-related Community Pulse questions just to hear you say it.
Mission accomplished,
yes.
guys.
Did you have any idea that was happening?
Well, when you started making me read all the questions and you started giggling profusely every time I said Wario, I was like, all right, I think something's up. I didn't know if you planned this with the people or if you just picked out the questions because you wanted to personally do it, but
it was it was a mix of both. It was a mix of planning and community participation. It was a big discussion point. We wanted to know if you were going to pronounce it as Wario.
All right, did you put any money down on this?
No, we didn't. But man, you guys are awesome for getting on that, community. Thank you. Thank you so much.
If we can only get this level of questions every week,
right? Just say something
honest.
wrong every time, and then see if people latch onto that.
I do feel like I should read one question that wasn't planted there as a trap for me.
Okay, go ahead.
If I may. Okay.
Yes.
All right. I did like actually Peter J. Ortiz's question of with what is the next Nintendo series you guys would like to see have a more open world experience, similar to how Odyssey and Breath of the Wild both kind of opened these things up and gave it, traditionally more linear games a open world exploration kind of feel.
Pokemon.
And I do think there's a lot of games that this actually could suit.
Pokemon.
Not the least of which was obviously we've talked about Pokemon a bunch, and an open world kind of experience like that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I also thought this would be really good for we haven't seen a Pilot Wings in a long time.
Wow, that's an interesting idea.
I think that a game like Pilot Wings, where they just really opened it up and gave you a ton of places to explore, because you're going to be flying around, a lot of places to do, and then you can discover the missions to take on as you're exploring whatever kind of giant open world. And I mean, we all liked gliding around Hyrule with just this paraglider. Now take that kind of a world and give yourself a biplane, a hang glider, jetpack, whatever. I just, this question made me think of that. And I was like, I feel like that is an experience that I would really enjoy, relaxing and, experiencing a lot of challenges with.
Yeah. I kind of feel like Wii Sports Resort, had a good setting for that type of gameplay, but adding the exploration open world element to it would be a ton of fun. I agree.
Yeah. And it also answers what people have also asked several times is what other Nintendo properties we haven't seen that I think I would like to see or we think might come. That also kind of addresses that. I think a Pilot Wings game is something that, we haven't seen in just long enough that people forgot it exists, that people will be excited again for, and, would be a good surprise for Nintendo to throw.
You know what I would really like? I would like a open galaxy Star Fox game.
Yeah, I can see that working too.
Where you can go fly down onto a planet, space battle and explore that area, then fly to different other planets, doing what you need to do.
Yeah,
it could kind of work like No Man's Sky.
All right, want to wrap this up?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone, for your feedback. And we did it. We got him to say it. They very much implored that I shouldn't let it on that they were doing this, Casey.
Okay, well, good job. You know, I'm flattered and frightened that you guys were willing to go through a conspiracy of this nature to make me say a word.
It's very good job. Good stuff, good stuff.
And if you'd want to make me say anything, all you really have to do is visit our Patreon page. Go to patreon.com/theswitchcast. And honestly, if you pay, pledge $1 a month, you can message me and tell me pretty much any safe for work word, and I will say it for you 100 times.
Yes, so please, patreon.com/theswitchcast. It's really the top way to support us in our endeavors here.
Right. And we also have, just for your fun, join us on the Discord chat. There's going to be a link in the description. That's really the heart and soul of where we hang out and we plan these kind of conspiracies for me, and where everyone meets and has a good time. And we have the Facebook group and a Twitter to follow. Also fun, good places to have fun.
Yes, exactly. So for this week's review crew, I want to read out names of awesome people. Willie Thompson, Splatmon2712, Dane B62, Silver Dragon 06, M Cavassini, 1232 S-Town, Chewy Plays Nintendo, and Ardwolf.
And in case you didn't realize, those are all names of people who left us iTunes reviews or Apple Podcast app reviews. And we wanted to show our thanks to those people and maybe inspire a few of you to leave us reviews as well. You guys have been really great with that. Don't slow down. Those reviews help us get known and help us spread the word to more people. So thank you, everybody who left us reviews. And if you haven't already, definitely go to either the Apple Podcast app or wherever you listen and review us. I want to give a special thanks to the HeatleyBros for the theme music and remind you all until next time,
switch it up.